Hello there, Seraph17 once again. This is my Sekiro walkthrough, and we are moving into the Bodhisattva Valley coming up after we've done the gun fort, and then we're going to be taking on our father Owl, and then after that we're going to be moving towards a slightly more ethereal plane at the Fountainhead, where we'll be taking on the True Corrupted Monk, and then rounding it off with the conclusion of that particular area. But first, we're tasked with moving down this area, taking on a couple of the monkeys, so do be careful. The cool thing about the monkeys is they go down in one shuriken, which is very reliable and one of the greatest aspects of balance in this game, in my opinion. As you come over here, you could be faced with the Tengu. You can speak to him and potentially get upgrades if need be. I'm going to hit the idol, and then we're going to be moving down into the valley and into the area with the people with the guns. So if you jump forward, as I did just then, you can hook onto the trees just beneath yourself, and then you can land on this platform with two of the Sunken Valley guys. Then after this, just be careful, they have lots of telegraphs with their guns. Fortunately for you, you can hit string the hell out of their block, and you will break their posture, and it will lead to an execution almost every time. Something that was quite new on this run than my previous one is when I got down here, there was a black phantom of the jar people, the night jar creatures with the owl getup and the sickles, and I've never seen this guy before here, so it's one of those areas of the game that I don't quite fully understand, and you might not have him, you might have him. If you do, you can just circumvent him as I did just then, cruise over here, and then stab our buddy there in the neck. But there's going to be a little bit of light platforming coming up. Hopefully you're used to the jump in the game at this point. I suppose at this point, if you're not used to the jump, you probably never will be. It's just one of those tools that's very mind-boggling. But did you see just then that the screen was telling me there was an opportunity to use the grapple hook? I wonder what would have happened if I'd have pressed that. But I think like a lot of times in this game, when it tells you that you can grapple, sometimes you go to press it, and it just vanishes the moment you do, right? But coming down here, there's going to be a bunch of guys with guns, and there's going to be a guy with a shotgun, who is one of the heavier enemies. So I'm going to run over and hit the idol, and then I'm going to quit out. And when you quit out, it will reset their positions, and it sometimes resets where you are, dependingly, thanks to the way the game saves. So after I do this, I'm going to be in a different place. They're going to be reset, their aggro is going to be lowered, and then I'm going to be able to take them on and isolate them without getting shot. And this is a technique that works in pretty much every Souls game that From have ever made, and it works in this. So if you're ever overextending and you want another go at something, just quit out. You'll probably see speedrunners do it, you'll probably see players of all skill levels do it, because it's one of those good ways of essentially having a second try at something without having to die. But rest here in the valley, and then coming up here, we're going to be jumping down and lamenting that the grapple doesn't let us do things that I would like it to let us do, as we skip the upcoming Snake Eyes enemy, who is a mini-boss that you can kill, but there's almost no point in killing her in my opinion, and I really do not like the way she fights, so it's one of those fights that I'm going to be skipping. And then after this, we're going to be running the gambit of trying not to get shot by CPUs with incredible aim capacities, so look forward to that. I'm going to showcase the loaded umbrella though, because I think this is a really, really cool strategy that you might not be aware of. So every time you get hit when you've got this on, it's going to put some posture damage on you, but if you don't get hit too much, it won't be a problem. You don't need the umbrella there, you can just sprint that if you want to, but there's always the chance that you could get shot because the accuracy of the enemies is ridiculous, and you need to be cognitive of that fact. And then coming up here, I'm going to be using some Gachin Sugar. What happened is, I tried to get up here without having any issues, and a couple of people were out of position to where I wanted them to be, so I fell down, and then I used the Gachin Sugar to see if it would give me an advantage, and it kind of didn't, so it just gave me the delusion of grandeur that enabled me to get up here without being shot, which is all you really need. But I would recommend using the Gachin Sugar before you start climbing, because then you will have the best advantage. And as we get up to the top of here, of this cliff, this is where the sugar is really going to come in handy. This is where I usually use it, because you can take out all of these people without it, but you can also just have that feeling of extra comfort should you make a mistake. And I'll compel you, ladies and gentlemen, use these sugars. I've been very harsh against the sugars because my problems with this game extend into the fundamentals of how it works. It's not the sugars' fault that they seem so completely garbage at times. It's just the damage model that the game wants you to do, so that it always prioritizes deflecting over direct damage in most boss fights. But 25% extra damage on your weapon is pretty slick. It doesn't look like it, because when you hit the enemy it looks like you're doing nothing still, but it's still way better than what you were doing, and it's going to make some fights a lot more manageable. So definitely use it, and then definitely use the Gatchin sugar for the advantage that leads to. But the room coming up has got 2 of the shotgunners in it, and if you run in here you can stab the first guy, and then you can start fighting the second one. This guy has a very telegraphed moveset of rolls into gunshots and then very slow swings, and I believe sometimes he even does a kick. So just watch out for what he does, break his posture, clean him up, get his yellow gunpowder, and then we're going to be moving towards one of the Giraffe Centipede characters, who is an enemy that we fought before. However, this time he seems to take a bit more of a beating than I remember. I remember using the Mortal Blade on this guy when I did my first playthrough. Here's some wonderful grab detection. Thank you there, Sekiro. Always good. Some snap seeds if you want to use those. They can be really good at stunning, and they can hurt apparitions, which is really nice. But when I first did this fight coming up, I used the Mortal Blade into parries, and it was enough to put this guy down. This time I tried to use the Senpu kicks, the temple kicks, and I didn't have the same level of success. I might be checking to make sure I'm still recording here, guys. Usually I would remove that kind of thing, but there's already been a lot of editing in this particular video, so I don't want to put too much in, because it can oftentimes get a bit confusing. Not entirely certain what I was doing, but here is the long-arm Centipede Giraffe. So after you parry his 10 hits, he will always lunge at you in the first phase, so that you can then proceed to do the jump attack counter. In the second phase, if he attacks you with his left hand, he'll do a shortened combo string that leads into a sweep. And that's pretty much all this guy has. And the hit strings are as follows. He starts off with 4, and then he has a break, and then he does another 4, and then he has another break, and then he does a 5th. I'm almost certain that's the string. And it's all rhythm, it's all that kind of thing. But a great way of learning that enemy, if you're struggling with him, you're never going to struggle with that enemy. Most people just mash the parry and it works, which, you know me folks, I completely disagree with that. I think you should get counter hit for like 10 times damage if you do that personally, because it should separate people who want to play the game from people who want to cheese the full game. But this enemy, if you do want to get better at it, if you put on Kuro's charm, you can't really get away with mashing as much and you'll still take a lot of damage. So it will teach you the precision and the timing needed to deflect each hit, rather than just simply mashing your way through it. And I know it's enticing and it's really inviting to mash, because it takes away the risk and the pressure of precision, but you'll never be good at the game if you play like that, folks. And you're playing this game to beat it, to overcome it, to improve as a player, right? And the best way to improve as a player is to take on board the systems and show the game that you can excel at what it wants you to do, right? That's what this walkthrough is trying to show people, hopefully, and to try and aid people in their pursuit of being better at the game. And then here we have another instance of wonderful grab detection. You can't even grab this ledge for some reason. It's a completely ungrabbable ledge, it seems. It's just there to annoy me, principally. But there is Black Hat. You're going to move forward his dialogue. I don't know if I'm on the file on this one, because I actually messed up when I was recording this, guys. I messed up, and I could not get my file, so I had to play it all the way back up to a boss. So you're going to see a transition between builds, and game worlds as well, but it's not going to be that noticeable, because I've done very little in this walkthrough. But I had to spend a Saturday evening re-recording all the way up to a certain area. I say re-recording, all I was really doing is playing the game to get there so I could record, and I think it was the Guardian Ape. I think I killed the Guardian Ape and I wasn't capturing, and I couldn't use the cheat engine to bring him back. Because one of the great things about playing these games on PC, guys, is that they get these awesome tables that enable you to experiment with all kinds of stuff, usually. So for Dark Souls 3, if you got the cheat engine table, you could, from the very beginning of the game, teleport to any bonfire in the game and immediately go practice a boss. And then if you killed the boss, you could revive him. So you could have infinite attempts against a boss and just have as much fun as you want and record it as many times as you'd like. And it was really, really cool. It enabled you to do tons of stuff. And I was thinking that Sekiro would have got the same treatment, but a lot of the tables at the moment and a lot of the mods and things don't seem to have that. But while I was talking there, guys, we were killing the snake.
There can be only one.
And to do this, you just follow the series of events that I did. You trigger it on the bridge, and then you go to Senpu, you use the puppeteer on that man, he heights the kite for you, and then you go across the side, and then use the kite to grapple across to do the execution on the serpent. And then from this point here, guys, if you drop down into the water, you want to be careful because you can take damage from the falls. Some of the falls in this game are kind of really stupid, and I don't understand why there doesn't seem to be a good method of stopping fall damage. Every Souls game has pretty much had a method of stopping fall damage, except for this one. And once again, folks, I'm too ignorant of the game to understand if I'm wrong, and to understand if there's a way to avoid the fall damage. And when I say avoid fall damage, I don't mean actually going a different route. I know the different route to get down into the valley. I'm talking about landing from a fall where you should take damage, but having a facility in the game to stop that from happening. And I just don't know if it exists. But once you're down here, feel free to explore around. If you don't want to kill the snake and you've killed the corrupted monk, you can come here and just go under the water and avoid the snake completely, and it will not hurt you, because it can't. So you don't have to stab him, but I thought for the purposes of the walkthrough, it would make a nice addition to the video to see that you can kill that creature. And then all you do is hit the idol, and then now we can move into this particular location, which is my favourite location of the game. I love the idea of this area, and I love how it looks. That being said, I do think that the enemy placement and how short this area is kind of a bit of a detriment, but design-wise, it's a pretty slick place. Couple of monkeys here to take on. There we go. Execute that bad boy. That's a good way of stopping fall damage, actually. If you can find an enemy to land on and execute them like I did that guy, that will completely mitigate all fall damage. But there's rarely enemies like that. And whenever I think of a mechanic such as that, it reminds me of Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Because in Mirror's Edge, you could jump off a roof on a fall that would kill you. So you could fall from like 100, 200 feet. As long as there was a red door in front of you where you were landing, you were fine. Because as you landed, you could activate an animation of Faith kicking the door. So you could do insane jumps, but as long as you land near that door, you just cancel from landing and immediately go into a kick. And it was such a wonderful technique. But right here, guys, there's an army of monkeys to my right. I'd love to show them to you. I'd love to kill them, but fighting them is a pain in the ass. There's like at least 25 monkeys just chilling out and like smoking and stuff. But we're going to be cruising over here and hitting the idol and then taking on the first boss of the video. This is where the footage is going to transition. So do you notice how on this build I have 3 of the revive icons that I'm not using? It's unfortunate, but it's just how it works. For this battle I wanted to try using some Akko Sugar, and I'm going to use the Divine Confetti because I love the way it looks. And it does do more damage through blocks, but this guy doesn't block, so I'm just using it more so because I like purple. But at the beginning of this fight, there are so many tools that can really make this an effortless encounter. You can use firecrackers, you can use Mortal Draw, you can keep this boss totally stun-locked. But for the purposes of this guide, I wanted to show some strategies that involve, you know, taking him on close quarters, using Ichimonji double, which is really good at stunning him and making him flinch, and then just jumping his grabs and staying aggressive, and just seeing what you can do. This is one of my favourite fights in the game, this one. The Guardian Ape and the Demon of Hatred are the 2 bosses in Sekiro that I really, really adore. And I adore them because you don't have to fight them like a Sekiro boss. If you run behind this guy when he does this move, he will never ever catch you. One thing you'll notice, guys, is whenever you knock him away and he runs off, he'll always come back to try and grab you usually. So if you chase him down, you can stay behind him, and then whenever he finishes what he's doing, you can hit him for free. Interesting, I didn't change to the Senpu kicks. I should have done that. In the second phase, guys, I recommend the Senpu kicks over the Ichimonji, because he has a couple sweeps that you can hit and it'll do incredible damage, but for whatever reason I decided not to do it this time. That could prove to be a mistake. I guess we'll find out. I don't remember this fight. So here is his running attack at you. If you run towards his right-hand side, you can get behind that. And then this is the worst move he has, but if you use the loaded umbrella, it will never hurt you. That's the reason why I didn't use firecrackers in the last phase, guys, because I wanted to showcase how good the umbrella is in this phase. Also here, guys, when you parry the first two, run behind him, hit him 4 to 5 times, run in front of him, parry the final hit, and then use the loaded spear to pull his parasite out. It's pretty much the most damage you can do to this boss. The only problem is, I'm going to fuck it up, which is really unfortunate. So if you watch him, 1, 2, move behind him, attack him in the legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then move in front of him. Oh no, he cancelled. Shit, that was bullshit. He shouldn't have done that. That's not usually how he gets to play, but he's pretty intuitive, I'll give him that much. But that's the idea anyhow. And all I'm going to do is continually use the loaded umbrella to stay close. You don't have to, you can run away from that move, it's really easily telegraphed. So here it is, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, run back in front, and then parry that. But I didn't parry it. And if you don't deflect it, he doesn't fall down. And that's the problem. If he'd have fallen down then, if I'd have deflected it correctly, he would have probably died. And it's unfortunate that I didn't do that. That's one of those things where, traditionally, in this run, I would have reset and done the boss again. But this is a 2-phase boss, and fighting an entire phase to miss a deflect is really, really boring, especially when you don't like the game. So, instead I decided to keep it. But here he comes, 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Oh, interesting, he modified it. But whenever he does that animation where he stands upwards like that, you are guaranteed a knockdown if you deflect him, which is one of my favourite parts.
There can be only one.
The reason that I like this boss so much, guys, is because he doesn't block. You do good damage to him, you can use rolls, you can use running, you can be evasive, you can hit and run, you can be creative, you can use almost any move against him, they're all quite effective. And then fundamentally, when you do deflect him, it matters. When you deflect that boss, he falls down. He falls down into a vulnerable state while you can do something really, really strong to him, and there's almost no other boss in this game that allows that. And that's what I don't understand about Sekiro. Fundamentally, I didn't understand it the first day I played it, I didn't understand it the day I recorded this. There are just certain design choices that will never ever agree with my particular philosophy on combat, and it's one of those things that if you don't have that I have, you're going to have a really fun time with the game. I think you're going to have a really, really good time with it, but I can't get past it. So once I've finished this walkthrough, I'll probably never play Sekiro again. And I feel sad about that. I mourn that fact, because I know it's a great game, I know it has a lot of good in it, I just don't like it. And it's such a strange kind of part of my brain. I don't understand feeling this way, because to me, when FromSoft release a game, I want to play it to death, I want to master it, I want to understand it, I want to do everything I can in it. Whereas with this game, I didn't even finish my first playthrough and I was bored. And it's just a strange thing, isn't it? And a lot of people, if you check my blind playthrough, a lot of people believe that because I was playing the game the way I was playing it, because I wasn't doing it correctly in their mind, that's the reason that I wasn't liking it. It was this argument of, you're bad at the game, you don't understand the game, and thus you don't enjoy the game. But I'm not bad anymore, I understand the game, and I still feel the same. So it's almost like I completely sized this game up from the very first hour of playing it, and I still have the same appraisal that I had then. And that's completely acceptable and perfectly fine, because the joys of video games is that there's something for everybody. But Sekiro's not for me, you know? Look at that as well, that's pretty funny, isn't it? You can tell I've not played this game for a while when I came back to record this, because I'm pressing literal X on my controller and making Sekiro jump instead of examining, because I've already moved on to another game where the examine button is probably different, and my brain has just kind of forgotten a lot of the muscle memories. But I hope that gives you faith, guys, that I can come back to this game after not really playing it, after not really wanting to play it, and have success. So if you're just playing it for achievements or trophies, or if your friends have dared you to play one of those FromSoft ridiculously insane games, you can maybe use this video and have some success. because that's what I've made it for. I made it to hopefully guide some people that are struggling, and to show them that if somebody can improve like I've improved, and if somebody can play the game in spite of really not enjoying it, then you should have a good advantage, right? And I think that's the best thing about YouTube, personally, as we come back to Ash in a castle here and stealth around. I think seeing somebody do something you can't do elicits two responses. There's probably more, but the two that I am aware of. The first one is an inspiration, where you see them do it and you go, oh my goodness, this is possible. This guy's done it, that means I can do it. I just have to get good enough and practice, right? That's the first one, that's the good one. And then the second one is, this guy's cheating, this guy is doing something underhanded, this is nonsense, this video is fake, this is X, this is garbage. That's the bad one. That's the ego deflecting, that's the projection of, if I can't do it, nobody can, and that's a really, really bad mentality. But YouTube has been that for me. I remember back in the day watching people play stuff and just seeing it and thinking, oh my goodness, this can be done. And it's inspired so many things that have made me a better player in so many ways. And if I can do that to other people with my projects on my channel, that makes me really happy. What am I doing here? Am I putting on the Senpu? Yeah. I should have done that for the monkey, but I didn't for some reason. And I'm going to remove the loaded spear because there's no use for it, because I don't use it in this run. But if you use Puppeteer on this particular guy, he will help you fight the Vilehand. Oh, interesting, I'm skipping out. Oh, I'm showing you the execution you can do. Interesting. So, this Vilehand fights like all the other ones. The only difference being is he has access to the poison, which is kind of new if you've not fought it too much. But if you know this guy's moveset, you can really, really hurt him, which is kind of awesome. The problem here is always the room, the camera, you know, all the other things that you've been fighting your entire Sekiro career that I don't think FromSoft are capable of fixing, and I feel like at this point they're doing it intentionally just to piss everybody off. But take him out, that's going to give you a good run back for the boss coming up, because we're about to take on Owl, and Owl is an easy boss, but he hits like a truck. So I buff with both Yoshiari, Karikuri, Kiri, Sugar, and then I use Divine Confetti. And my strategy here, guys, is to bait his running attack and then punish it with 2 R1s. You can sometimes do 3 R1s, but it's not guaranteed. And then when he jumps, punish that with more hits as well. Get mid-space from him, walk towards him, and then dodge to his right, to your right, his left. And here's the only thing you need to be aware of. If your dodge time is bad, you get hit. If you dodge too far to the right, he will do a follow-up move. Other than that, this is absolutely golden. And there's another strategy for Owl that involves putting pressure on him and then dodging around his riposts. All the speedrunners do it. If you want to see that technique, guys, watch a speedrun. I didn't want to use it even though it's really effective because I wanted to show you my strategy. What you're watching right now is what I figured out when I was doing my blind playthrough against this boss. I deduced that he was very weak from his running slash, and that's the strategy that I built off that you're watching right now. And then in the second phase, it's principally the exact same. Get some space from him, walk towards him. If he jumps, counter it. If he does his run, hopefully he gives you the slash you want. The thing to know here, guys, is he does 2 slashes. The one he did just then is kind of upwards, and then the other one is much more horizontal. The upwards one is a little bit faster, the horizontal one is a touch slower. So you need to be aware of it, because they're different. They look similar, but they are different. And the hitbox on them is different, and the timing is incrementally different. And all we're doing is punishing it. Whenever he runs at you like that, it means he wants to kick off you. So if you run away from him, he'll eventually stop. If you're confident in the kick, walk towards him, let him do it, and punish it accordingly. But whenever he sprints towards you, he will almost always throw the healing vial, or he'll do the kickoff. That's the 2 things he wants to do when he does that. That's what his programming loves to do. And you might be thinking, can you deflect this boss, Chris? You can. You can deflect Owl. The only problem with deflecting Owl is it takes a decent amount of time, because he's got good posture. I've never done it though with buffs. Maybe with buffs it's faster.
There can be only one.
But there you go. That was a guy who had me stuck for about 3 hours on my first run. And I came back and I got him in, what, 10 minutes? Didn't take very long at all. However, guys, that does not mean that it's not difficult. I've played a lot of action games, I've played a lot of Souls games. The kind of cadence of this fight is how I play Bloodborne. It's how I fight the Aberrant Beast. You know, this is the stuff that I'm confident in, that I'm comfortable with. And if you watch this video and it seems so far outside your reach and you don't understand how anybody does it, fear not. We've all been there. We've all been that person. We've all been that player. It just takes practice. You can do everything I've done in this video. You can do better. All it takes is a little time and a little dedication. And if you love the game, it's gravy, right? Because you're going to be playing it anyway. But now that we've taken out Owl, we get to talk to Emma and we get to talk to Kuro. And this is one of those moments where the game wants you to do a lot of eavesdropping and a lot of, like, complicated dialogue stuff. I'm not going to show this, guys, because there's no need. I'm just going to, like, hit the people, trim out the dialogue, and then we're going to be moving on to the next section, which is going to be leading us towards Fountainhead. And Fountainhead is quite an interesting location because I feel like it's really graceful and really interesting at first, and then it turns into a giant clusterfuck of insanity with people capoeira kicking footballs at you and killing you instantly from out of nowhere. Like, the start of it is really soothing, really tranquil, really feng shui, and then the second part of it is just blast beats, death metal in your asshole. It just goes out of nowhere, and it's one of the areas in the game that I don't really like navigating, because I think it's a little bit too heavy-handed for my tastes. But I love the way it looks. I love the idea of it, this ethereal plane full of these, like, exalted people. And then it has a fun enemy type, which is the warriors there, the Okami warriors. And then it has a boss that's pretty cool, even though I don't really like it. But here we are. We've just used this interesting figure from some Japanese folklore, which is this huge rope man, and he's led us to this place. And then when we walk through here, you'll remember this location because it was from a lot of the promotional footage for the game. This is the True Corrupted Monk fight, and at the very beginning she's going to jump towards you. If you're grappling as she lands, she won't hurt you, she won't make you flinch, sorry. However, if you are anything else pretty much, if you're in range, she'll knock you over. And the fight here is quite simple. You can actually backstab the first two phases of this fight, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to show you a little bit more of the encounter. I'm going to backstab the second phase, because the second phase is the one I think people are going to really struggle with. But for the first phase, I wanted to show you an aggressive approach. Stay in her face, use the fan to do the techniques that we learnt from the previous version of this boss, and then when you kill her, grapple to this tree, look in the middle of the bridge, and the moment she turns up, lock on, and then execute. This will skip the second phase. The third phase is the most intricate phase of this fight. She has a lot of modifiers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a pretty defensive, mobility-focused way of fighting here. But for this, do 4 parries and then a fan parry to stop the knockback. Afterwards, she almost always tries to vom on you with the Terror Juice. And then whatever she does next is up to her. There's lots of modifiers though, and then when she's at a distance, she has 3 things she can do. She can do a streaking forward sweep that can be punished with senpu kicks. She does that jump, or she'll cover distance to try and do something else. That's the only 3 moves she can do. I'm never going to use the senpu kicks unless it's going to break her posture, because she can counter with the juice fist, and the juice fist will get you every time while you're still recovering.
There can be only one.
But there you go, guys. That was the True Corrupted Monk. That is a pretty interesting fight, that one. I've learnt to respect it a lot more now that I've got some different strategies of doing it. My favourite way to fight that boss is to not deflect at all. It's to actually use the run and do no roll strategy, which involves running around every attack. I think it's the most fun way to fight her. However, it's a way that requires a lot of understanding of that particular playstyle, and I'm almost certain that there are very few people on this planet that even do that. And the reason why I know that is because if you go on YouTube right now, if you look for no roll, you won't find many videos. There are a lot of people that you'll find, and they're all part of quite an exclusive clique of people that have played Souls games in a very bizarre manner that is incredibly difficult but very masterful as well. And Sekiro is no different. You can do it in this game. The only difference is here, it's a little different in the way that you do it, because of course there's a little bit less options in this game. But this is the Fountainhead, ladies and gentlemen. This is an area that if you did not betray your father's code, or betray whatever the thing is that we betrayed where we fought Owl, you will not even see this part of the game, because the game will end. You'll fight 2 last bosses, and then that will be the end of your story. However, because we've decided to do the Immortal Severance, we now get to go to this location and do a lot of stuff that is actually really worth seeing. And it's funny that I've said that, because I'm going to be skipping most of this location. There's even a bull you can fight here, and I was going to show you the quick kill on the bull when you startle it with the firecrackers, but I ended up forgetting to do it when I was recording. And it's just one of those things, guys. By the time I got to this point in the walkthrough, I was so done with the game, I couldn't even find the motivation to record it. And it's kind of sad that I have to say that, because I know a lot of people it will upset them because they love this game. But for me, it was definitely a chore. It was much more difficult than it needed to be, for reasons that have nothing to do with the game and its challenges, you know? Because right now there's this very strange idea that Sekiro is like the hardest game ever made, because a lot of casual players are getting killed, and they're so used to every video game handing them victory without any effort, that when they come to a game where it shits in your mouth, slaps your mum and dad, and then pisses on your girlfriend, that you're somehow surprised that this has happened. And I think if anybody's played Demon Souls and then the games that preceded that, like, you've come to a point in an agreement that when you play FromSoft games, you're going to take a bunch of sloppy deaths because the games are designed to kill you, you know? But the issue that a lot of these new players have is they've never played hard games. They've never played challenging games. So we get these wonderful articles like the achievement website where they covered the backwards compatibility on Ninja Gaiden 2, where in the first few minutes of the video, they're saying that Sekiro is harder than Ninja Gaiden 2, and I'm sitting there thinking, what crack are you smoking, and can I have some, because I didn't want to have a bright future anyway, right? Because that's how ignorant that statement is, and it's not made in a like a malicious way, it's just complete and utter, they do not understand the game, that's all it is, you know? Ninja Gaiden 2 is one of the hardest games you will play on the Xbox 360, and Ninja Gaiden 2 is hard on normal, and that's not even mentioning Mentor, that's not even mentioning on Master Ninja. Playing Ninja Gaiden 2 on Master Ninja is one of the most humbling experiences you will ever get. And I mean that, guys. It will make Sekiro look like Call of Duty. It's that much of a divide. Like, the stuff I've done in this game with very nominal effort compared to the stuff I barely did in Ninja Gaiden 2 is profound. And I always find difficulty to be a really interesting discussion because everybody has different views on it. But I do fervently believe, piously in fact, that there are certain objective aspects of difficulty that can't even be disputed, can't even be, you know, disagreed upon, because the people, for instance, when it comes to Ninja Gaiden 2, if you don't think Ninja Gaiden 2 is hard on Master Ninja, you are very good at Ninja Gaiden 2. There's no other way of looking at it. You've gone through a crucible that some people cannot even imagine, you know? It's just the way it works. And speaking of the way it works, I always look over here at this corner of this wall, and it makes me think that I can jump off that rock, into that wall, bounce off the wall, and then grab the roof. And I'm certain that somebody's probably done this in some crazy speedrun, but I always come here, I always have like 1 or 2 cracks at it, and then I always wonder if it can actually be done. But instead I'm going to be jumping over here and going immediately for the bonfire, even though it's called an idol, but old habits die hard. And then I'm going to be taking on one of the dumbest NPCs in this game, the goddamn bicycle-kicking instant death Zeus machine over here. So when you land, guys, if this guy starts immediately jumping and kicking, you're dead. You just are. If he does that kick, you're okay, you can dodge that. It's the other one, it's this one, but you can anti-air death blow it. So, luckily, you can kill him instantly when he does it, but if you're at a distance when he does that move, there's almost nothing you can do to stop it. It's really crazy. Dodging it is insane. It's unblockable. You can't use the umbrella. Like, if you're in the water, you're fucked. It's pretty funny. It's one of the strongest enemies in the game. Like, those enemies that kick the footballs kill you in 1 hit. It's crazy, unless they do that, like, crazy, like, double kick thing, and then that doesn't kill you in 1 hit, but most of the other stuff really does. And then now we get to play with the giant carp, and I should have gone here. I should have swam towards the other side and continued on, But I've only ever done this like 3 times. No, in fact, I've only done this twice. This is the second time I've done this sequence. So I don't really know the best route, and I don't really know how it all works. And it's one of those areas that I don't really get why this exists. This reminds me of those dumb moments in games where we always kind of go, why is this in the game? Why do you have to shoot asteroids in that weird Star Wars section in Dead Space? It just doesn't make sense, right? People put it in for a bit of diversity, for something different, and it's just, I don't understand it. It's unusual. But what's going to happen, folks, is the carp is going to see me, and then I'm going to back up a little bit. He's going to take a bite out of my environment, and then I'm going to swim all the way across to the entrance. So he sees me now, he goes for a swing, he doesn't catch me, luckily, and then we can go over here, and we can go into the hole. And then I forget how to use the swimming controls because it's been a while, and then we can continue onwards. But it's an interesting kind of cat and mouse, I guess. It feels a bit weird, that section, to me. It's one of those segments that I wonder what its true purpose was. Maybe there was a bit more of an ambitious angle there. Because can you imagine if you had to fight that thing underwater and it was a boss? That would be Ninja Gaiden water combat levels of stupid, and I'm really glad that doesn't exist. As I think we can all agree, fighting the Headless underwater might be the most fun you've had in this game, right? It just doesn't get much more fun than that. Swimming around with your boost and your one move, and it's just next level. But in here, there's going to be more of the nobles, the Miss Nobles. There's an interesting storyline here and sub-thread of some characters that came to the Fountainhead, seduced by the enticement of the waters and this idea of apotheosis, becoming exalted and ascending to this elevated plane that these nobles were on. And it's probably like most things, it's a lie, because a lot of the fiction in this game is rather dark. But a cool story nonetheless. The story is one of my favourite aspects of Sekiro. There's some really, really nice stuff in there. And I expect nothing less, because the stories from From's most recent games have all had some really interesting elements. A lot more complicated than a lot of other stories, but told in such a way that it is quite simplistic, which is interesting. Simplistic because you spend most of the time kind of filling in the gaps and creating your own story. So the pieces themselves are rather rudimentary, but the way that your mind works with them is you spend more time like postulating on what they could mean, and I think it can oftentimes make it feel a bit more meaningful. But up here is one of those football people, so do not let this guy do shit. And the Sabimaru is amazing against these enemies because it's their weakness. If you hit an archer with a Sabimaru once, I think it poisons him. Like, it's really, really strong against this particular enemy type, the Okami ladies. And one of the cool things about the game is that the full game has been telling you that those women are weak to that knife, because it's on the tooltips. And that's the only reason I know that that works. But hit the idol, and then coming up is going to be the gimmick fight of the game. Much more manageable than the Bed of Chaos, much less frustrating than something like the Dragon God, but not without its strange minutiae, should we say. So at the beginning here, there's going to be a lot of these fluted dragon trees. They're going to be vomiting this poison mist, and then after a while, there's going to be a wolf's howl, and then you're going to get attacked by, I think it's 3 to 4 branches that will uproot from the ground. When they uproot, they're going to give you the opportunity to climb to them, and then from that point onwards, you can then do a stealth kill, which will turn into this strange whipping motion that will kill almost every one of the dragon trees. It's really weird how this particular mechanic works, and I didn't find it on my first playthrough, but it's one of the gimmicks that I'm really welcome for, because the idea of doing this fight without this maneuver is really annoying. So being able to do this is really cool. And I know it's annoying because I did it in my blind playthrough about 4 or 5 times, and I just found it to be really uninspired and really stupid. I felt like this was the worst boss in the game when I was doing it. But once I discovered this, thanks to people in my Discord, it completely changed my mentality towards it. But here is the final phase, guys. This is the Divine Dragon. So at the very beginning, the dragon's going to push you back, and then it's going to proceed to swing at you. Whenever it does the horizontal swings, you have to jump, and then when it does the vertical ones, you have to run to the side of them. and then when the lightning strikes the tree, go to the tree, it will trigger like an animation of you absorbing lightning. It doesn't hurt you because this game's a fucking hypocrite, and then you can fire it at the dragon, and then you have to do this until you stun him and you win. Couple of things to bear in mind here, guys. This room, for whatever reason, eats jumps, and I don't know why. I was doing this fight perfectly, like second attempt when I was recording it, and at the very end he does a flurry that involves 2 sweeps. I know the animations, I know what I'm meant to do, I've done this fight a lot, and the first jump came out perfectly, the second jump didn't come out, and I took it to the face, and I pressed the button, guys. Like, I know the jump is delayed, I know you have to jump prematurely because the game is designed by lunatics, but even still, Sekiro did not jump and I got hit, and it makes no fucking sense. So be very careful in this section. I would even recommend maybe pressing jump more than once to get around it. Mash jump if you have to, because doing this fight is interesting like the first time, and then afterwards it's just, there's nothing here. It's just really beautiful, it's got great music, it looks awesome, the concept's wonderful, but mechanically, it doesn't get more simple than this. This is literally jumping on Bowser's head 3 times, you know? So here is what should be the second phase, but I didn't quite do enough damage for some reason. That's quite unusual, but it does happen. So make sure that you do not go to the tree when the dragon is swinging, because he can hit you in the air. I just assumed his gender because I'm that cool. But the music shifts when it goes to the second phase, and then all you have to do now is survive. So this will begin with all kinds of new swings, kind of ambiguous diagonals. Whenever you see a perilous, it means you have to jump. That's the only thing you have to worry about. If you're running left and right at full speed, you will never get hit by this stuff. It will never touch you. However, the perilous stuff will. You have to jump. And because the jump is delayed, it's very difficult to react to the actual projectile. If you see the projectile and you haven't jumped, you will get hit because the jump is so slow. So here it comes. See me jumping prematurely then? Got very lucky on that one. Managed to get the iframes on the dodge when I landed. But here come the trees after the flurry, and then all you have to do is go to the tree and you've won. But it's the same every time, guys. Does a bunch of flurries, then he twirls his weapon, and then he does an overhead, and then he does 2 sweeps. And as long as you jump the 2 sweeps, you'll be fine. And that time, I wasn't taking any chances, so I mashed to jump, and it nearly fucked me. But there's the Divine Dragon. There's a nice slap for being uncooperative.
There can be only one.
And there are the frozen dragon tears. The gracious gift of tears is going to enable us to seek immortal severance. I will see you in the finale of this walkthrough. I hope the videos help, and you take care now.